Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Liv Rosin, who's here to share with us her new book, My Stroke of Blessings, A Message of Hope. Can having a life-altering stroke also be a blessing in your life? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Liv Rosin, a retired English teacher with over 35 years of experience, shares her inspiring journey in My Stroke of Blessings, A Message of Hope. After surviving her stroke in 2011, Liv's memoir reflects her resilience, faith, and the unwavering support of her family. An award-winning educator, Liv's story offers hope and candid insights into overcoming life's greatest challenges, inspiring readers to find blessings even in adversity. So welcome to the show, Liv Rosin.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. Why don't you take us back to the day of your stroke and what happened?
Well, that is a day that I will never forget. It had been one of those weeks that was a perfect storm. So much that was going on for me. I was a high school English teacher for 27 years, and that particular week, I had been correcting so many research papers and getting ready for some presentations, as well as uh, getting the yearbook for my second grade, for the second graders class, so that that yearbook was going to be absolutely perfect. So not much sleep, a lot of caffeine, and so that particular morning I wasn't feeling quite right. I had kind of a strange feeling even in my feet for some reason, but I had to go to school because I had a presentation to make. Did the presentation, killed it, and then I had to chair a contentious English meeting and survived that. Then, when I was sitting in my classroom in front of the computer doing some work for everything going on with the freshmen, I got a phone call from one of my colleagues, and she wanted to debrief the meeting. And as we were talking, suddenly this sharp pain got me in the head, and suddenly my left arm began to feel like an invertebrate. It felt like a snake. And then my left leg, the same thing. And because I was not sitting properly, I slid off the chair and landed on the floor. Meanwhile, the person that I'm speaking with has no idea these things are going on. But then she noticed that I wasn't talking. All I was doing was breathing. All I could do was focus on my breathing. And from there, she asked if she could call my husband. I couldn't think of Mark's number at that time. So she called Lori, who is the head secretary, and Lori got things in motion. And fortunately, everybody was where they needed to be in order for the protocol, being able to call and get the paramedics coming and get my husband on the way. So I didn't have to worry about dying, because the kind of stroke that I had, not only did it kill my maternal grandmother, but it kills more than 50% of the people that have it. So I was very fortunate that day.
It's quite an experience that you went through, and a lot of people go through this and don't really realize that it's probably good to have some type of plan or discussion in place should anything happen.
Yes, I mean, I didn't have any plan, but unfortunately, everything went the way it was supposed to go. And in fact, there have been many times that first 6 months when my mother would talk about that we needed to pray that God would have a miracle take place. And I would say, Mom, there already was a miracle that took place because of everybody being where they needed to be, and the neurologist being ready because Mark had talked to his friends who were cardiologists at the hospital. And so they were ready. I was able to get where I needed to be. And even though my brain bleed was so deep that they couldn't do any surgery, I still was able to survive.
What did you experience, the days and weeks after? Because that's such a life-altering event. You must have had some real immediate challenges.
The biggest challenge, besides the fact that I was in the hospital and I wasn't able to be with my second grade son or my husband, so I had that anxiety and the anxiety about not having lesson plans prepared for any kind of a sub. And at that point, I didn't realize that they already knew that I wouldn't be coming back for the rest of the year. There was still half of a semester to go, but there was already a sub in place. And once I had those things in place, otherwise it was remarkable. It felt like I was at some kind of a hospital camp. I was actually really enjoying myself because I do really well with structure. I always have. And because there was such a heavy structure to from the moment I woke up till the moment I went to bed, I didn't really have time to feel sorry for myself or to be missing people because I had wonderful physical therapists, occupational therapists, other kinds of therapists, and my doctor was wonderful at that time. And so I just really enjoyed all the conversations I was having with people. I guess at night, if I had problems sleeping, that was when I thought about the fact that I wasn't with my loved ones.
Well, it seems that in many ways you had the best case scenario with, having everything in place in the way that it was and just your mindset as well, which kind of has me kind of thinking. I mean, many people look at a stroke as a pure hardship, but your book is titled My Stroke of Blessings. So, what led you to view this experience as a blessing?
It was interesting. While I was still in the hospital, I decided that I needed to write a book about my experiences because it was so positive. Mark's cardiology friends would come and visit me during their lunchtime. And I had a number of people, a lot of friends and family that would come and visit when I had time. So that was one thing I felt remembered. And then I had a chance to meet people who were in the same situation as I. Either they'd had a stroke or they'd had some kind of traumatic brain injury. But there were people that were older, people that were younger, but I still had this opportunity to chat with them. And we'd even have what I called idle chatter because at that time, American Idol was huge. I think it was like the fourth season or something like that. And and so we could talk about that. And it was just about the time for William and Kate to get married. And and so there was all that kind of conversation as well. So the fact that I had these positive therapists and I had these wonderful people coming to visit, as well as flowers that were coming that just people knew when they were getting to my room because it just smelled so beautiful. And I also had a fantastic roommate. I mean, it was like God had provided me with this roommate whose husband, well, first of all, they went to the same church as one of my favorite cousins and his wife. And my cousin and my roommate's husband had sat on the church council together a number of times. And Becky, that was my roommate, she worked at a high school that was close to mine, and one of the administrators in her hospital was married to one of the administrators in my high school, not hospital, high school. And so we very seldomly shut the curtain between our sides of the room because we just felt so comfortable with each other. And even when each of us would have guests, we would be part of the conversation. So, I mean, it was just such a wonderful time. It didn't get complicated until I got home.
Well, let's talk about that, how complications started when you got home.
Well, I think when I was at the hospital, everybody who was there, all the patients, were in a similar situation. And in fact, many of them were in a worse situation. For example, the kind of stroke that I had affected the left side of my body. And when people have strokes that affect the right side of their body, they often end up with aphasia, which means they have difficulty speaking and sometimes they can't speak at all. So even though my lips were numb and I sounded like I had just been to the dentist and had lots of Novocaine applied, I could talk and I hadn't lost any of my memory. Plus, my husband had gotten me all these wonderful things to wear, wonderful new tennis shoes and sweats and hoodies. So I looked better than the therapists, and I looked better than most of the people who were patients with me. But when I got home, it was suddenly a case of have nots rather than the haves, because my one of the big things that had affected me was my balance. And so what that meant was I couldn't wear any of my shoes with heels. So I had to give away most of my shoes. I couldn't wear my flip-flops. I had to wear shoes that had a heel and or not a heel, but that tied or that my foot could slip in. I couldn't wear something that just affected the front part of my foot. That meant too that with the balance, that it was really difficult to climb onto people's decks or so one of the first opportunities I had to visit with a number of people to celebrate one of the friends ending her cancer, I I was afraid to go get food because I could only use my right hand. So that meant if I was holding my plate with my right hand, I couldn't use my left hand for anything. So there was no way to get the food. I couldn't hold a plate and a drink. Everywhere I looked, it was, what I could not do.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Liv Rosin in regards to her new book, My Stroke of Blessings, A Message of Hope. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest, Liv Rosin, who's sharing with us her new book, My Stroke of Blessings, a message of hope. I know when people go through a big medical challenge, it's much more than just the physical that they're dealing with. There's that emotional and that mental aspect as well. How did you navigate the emotional side of healing?
I realized, thanks to one of my wonderful therapists, that I needed to grieve, to mourn for a while. And then after that, I needed to start focusing on what I had to do in order to improve. And one of the blessings that brought hope to me was when I was able to join what I called Jane's Gang. And that was a 4-day group of people who had similar situations, but they all needed to work on their occupational therapy as well as physical therapy. So that meant focusing both on the hand that had been affected and the foot. So Jane, the person who was in charge, was just this creative, mad woman. I mean, and I mean mad in a good way, that she was so creative. She had ways to have us working on overcoming some of our problems. And she would do that using Nerf guns and balloons, trying to keep balloons in the air, except we had to use the hand that had been affected by the stroke, not the hand that we would automatically reach. We would have to be practicing wrapping presents for Christmas, and even lunch we had an opportunity at that point. Our place that we were at had a McDonald's that we could walk to, go down the elevator and then walk a little bit. And she let us have a little bit longer for lunch if we promised to use our affected hand to eat our hamburger or to hold our drink. Now, she knew that if I tried to do that, I would end up spilling the drink all over the place. So she would have me try to open my straw with my affected left hand and to do something that still kept me as part of the group, but wasn't so overwhelming that I just felt like I couldn't do anything. And again, having that structure plus having that sense of community, those two things together just gave me so much hope. And when I got to the point when she told me that she was kicking me out because I was ready to try doing things in the real world. Now, by this point, I had been out of the hospital and the rehab center for at least 6 months. But then she came up with all kinds of things that I needed to do, including finding a student at my high school who needed some extra help so that it could help me get ready for teaching, just to give me that sense of accomplishment that I was able to be ready. So she was just a marvelous person, and I'm still connected with her on Facebook. And so in fact, I told her about the book, and since I actually used her first name, I figured I needed to let her know that she was going to be in the book. And she was one of the heroes, but she was just so overwhelmed that I would even include her in the book, that it was something that made me feel really good.
How would you say that your perspective on life and gratitude and resilience has changed since your stroke?
Oh man, it has changed in so many ways. The blessings of humor, the blessing of persistence in not giving up, in continuing to try. That certainly happened when I got back in the classroom, for sure. I talked about the blessing of community. Thanksgiving, certainly, blessing of gratitude was so much deeper than it had been in earlier Thanksgivings. Just to have the thanks for being able to try to make a pie or to work on brining the turkey, things that I would not have been able to do the first year of my stroke. And in fact, that was one of the things. First year was so hard because I tended to focus on a year ago, I was able to do something that I was no longer able to do. But once I got to that point of a year ago, I was stuck in my bed or in my wheelchair, or I couldn't do anything without having a nurse or a therapist or a doctor with me. Just that sense of hope. And each time I accomplished something, there just was that much more hope that I was going to continue to improve. And in fact, when I learned about growth mindset, Carol Dweck, amazing book, I realized that for much of my life, I'd had fixed mindset, which was if I couldn't do it right away the first time, I just wasn't going to be able to do it. And that, I think back to college when I dropped out of certain classes after I failed the first quiz. I just thought, oh, can't do accounting. And then when I learned about growth mindset and the fact that it was all about the effort and that the brain with the neuroplasticity brain was never going to stop improving, changing, developing. So that meant that even with my stroke, that I might not be able to have that growth and that change as quickly as possible, but it's there. And I really wish that we had videotaped me monthly, kind of doing the same thing, so that I could see how I had changed. Because my husband talks about all the changes that he has seen. And that's wonderful because he doesn't make stuff up.
He keeps it as it is, right?
He does, absolutely.
If you could share one piece of advice with someone who is struggling to find hope in a difficult situation, what would that be?
Well, I mean, first, whatever it is, you deserve to have some time of grief for whatever it is that happened. And then it's important to start thinking about, what do I need to do? And if you're a person that thrives around other people, then it's really important to find something, some kind of a group, whether it's a rehab group or discussion group, something, so that you can see, number one, that you're not alone, and number two, you may have a chance to discover something that you might never have known otherwise. Keeping a gratitude journal is also something that's really helpful. I had my son. My book has quite a bit of baseball in it, actually, because my two sons have been baseball players. My oldest was a professional baseball player. He played AAA and even about 20 professional games of baseball. And my youngest is a senior playing at Kansas State. He's Wildcat. He's also a pitcher. And so there are a number of things that they have had to deal with, that they have had to mourn, especially my oldest son, when his professional life didn't turn out the way that he had planned that it would do, even though it's amazing what he accomplished. But the gratitude journal and volunteering, helping people that need help, there are many ways of being able to reach out and do things that bring so much more joy than you would ever expect. I certainly found that with all the ways that I volunteered at my church, especially with confirmation and Sunday school and some of those kinds of activities with the younger people. And now I'm leading discussion groups dealing with books or whatever our church is focusing on. But I'm even doing some group discussions about my book because there are a number of people that have read it. And so this next month, I'll have 2 or 3 different groups. A couple of them will even be Zoom because one of them will involve someone from Norway as well as people from different parts of the United States. So there are ways that people who are feeling a loss and feeling distraught, feeling depressed, ways that they can find joy and hope where they never thought they would find it.
What would you like readers and our listeners to take away from My Stroke of Blessings?
Well, hope is huge. In fact, that's the last thing that my husband said before. I'm in his office right now. And he said, make sure you talk about hope. And well, the book is filled with hope. And so when you read the book, prepare to cry. There are opportunities for that, but there are plenty of opportunities to laugh as well, especially when I was trying to navigate between Minnesota and Tulsa, Oklahoma with my 15-year-old. And he was supposed to be my navigator, but he was not navigating. And People behind me driving were not pleased with the way I was driving, and so there are plenty of opportunities to laugh and see that I am far from a perfect individual, but I don't mind poking fun at myself. But I think most important is when you are trying to make life better for people around you, whether it's your family or your friends, and when you were focusing on opportunities to make life better even for yourself, you find an incredible amount of joy in places that you never expected to find.
Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
You can certainly, if you want to become my friend on Facebook, all you have to do is look for me, Liv, Liv, Rosin, Rosin, and I will be more than happy to let you know where I'm going to be next.
Well, Lieb, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you. You've just been wonderful. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Lieb. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, My Stroke of Blessing, A Message of Hope. My Stroke of Blessings available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.